For the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 17, 2020 meeting of the Hillsborough County Zoning Hearing Master. My name is James Scarola, and I'll be the hearing officer this evening. What we'll do to kick the hearing off tonight is first I'm going to ask staff if there are any changes to our agenda. So listen carefully in case your petition's involved. Then I'll go through a set of procedures with you on how we'll conduct the hearing, and we'll move right on into it. A little announcement for the people that are in the room now. We're trying to establish a one-way traffic in the room. So if you need to leave for whatever reasons, my hand is pointing to the side that you need to go to. So the door is over on my right, your left, and also the bathrooms are out there as well, just so you know. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Brian Grady of the Development Services Department. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Scarola. We have couple of changes on tonight's agenda. The first change is on page 5 of the agenda, item D2, rezoning plan development 20-0382. The applicant Untitled Development LLC. The applicant is requesting a continuance. Actually, it says September 29th. This will be to September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. I believe the applicant is virtually attending to explain the reasons for the requested continuance.
Okay, the applicant, please.
That'll be JD. Thank you. Sir, if you can hear us, go ahead.
So it doesn't appear that the applicant's available.
Mr. Hearing Officer, the reasons for the requested continuance is there's outstanding transportation issues that were not resolved in time for the report. They have a favorable recommendation from staff. That's the reason why the applicant is requesting continuance is to try to resolve those. And
yeah, he's alone. Should I bring his mic up?
Road on the FHT regulated roadway that they need to work out with whether or not they're going to have permission for that access point, because without that access point, it does affect the design of it and would cause a redesign of this site plan and the zoning if they were not able to get that access point.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anybody else that needs to speak to the agenda item D2 with respect to this continuance request? Okay, I don't see any. With that, we're going to continue agenda item D2 to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Brian?
And that is the only change to the published withdrawal. It's published agenda. I'll go through the published withdrawals and continuances on page 4 of the agenda. We do have one change on that. It's the first item, item A1, which is the rezoning application 18-0798. This application is out of order to be heard and is going to be continued to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A2, major mod application 19-0521, Board RZ Development LLC. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 28th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A3, rezoning PD 20-0118. Actually, this out of order continuance will be continued to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A3, rezoning application PD 20-0118. This application out of order to be heard is being continued to the September 15th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A4, rezoning PD 20-0308. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A5, rezoning standard 20-0343. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A6, major mod application 20-0377. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the September, again, 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A7, rezoning PD 20-0394. This application out of order to be heard has been continued to September 14th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A8, major mod application 20-0397. This application has been continued by the applicant to the September 29th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. And item A9, rezoning standard 20-0797. This application out of order heard has been continued to September 15th, 2020 zoning hearing master hearing. That's moving changes to the agenda.
Brian, I do want to ask you about a couple of these, just as a little double check. Item A2, again, what's that continuance date?
September 14th.
Okay, that has to be cleared for the record. I believe that's a change from what was there.
Yes, that's a
September
change.
14th.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then
And then
item
A4 was a change to September 14th.
14.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I think
then
that's
item
it.
A6, same thing, September 14th.
You just said A6?
A6, correct.
Okay. And item A8 is good, right? Where you want?
That's correct. Yeah, that's September 29th.
And A9?
That is
says the
correct.
15th.
That's correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Brian. So, ladies and gentlemen, with respect to our hearing this evening, and the rezoning requests on our agenda, the Land Development Code requires that a public hearing be conducted by a land use hearing officer prior to a decision by the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. The hearing officer does not make the final decision, but instead renders a recommendation to the board, who makes the decision at their public meeting. This hearing tonight is generally going to be informal. Questioning will be confined as closely as possible to the scope of direct testimony. And what that means basically is you'll just be speaking directly with me. As the hearing officer, I'll call and question witnesses as necessary and appropriate, and I'll decide all questions on procedure. Irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence is going to be excluded. Any part of your evidence may be received in written form, and all testimony tonight is going to be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used for the purpose of supplementing or explaining other evidence, but it won't be sufficient in itself to support a finding, unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. So having said that, the basic order of presentation is going to go like this. First, Mr. Grady will introduce each petition. The applicant and any of their witnesses may come forward, and there'll be a segment set aside of up to 15 minutes to present the petition and any supporting testimony and evidence. I'll then look to the Development Services staff for a summary of the staff report for a period of about 5 minutes. And then at that point, I'll turn to the Planning Commission and ask for a statement of compliance or non-compliance with the comprehensive plan. And that will also be for a period of right about 5 minutes. At that point, I'm going to turn and ask if there's any proponents in the audience. Proponents are not another chance for the applicant to speak. Instead, those are other parties that might be here supporting the petition. And a total time segment of up to 15 minutes will be set aside if necessary. And similarly, I'll turn and ask if there's any opposition. And if so, a total time period of up to 15 minutes will be set aside. I'll then look to staff to see if there's any changes based on the comments that were received to their recommendations and conclusions. And lastly, the applicant will have an opportunity for final rebuttal. So a quick statement about the time segments. We've got a hybrid hearing going, so we'll have virtual speakers and speakers in person. I know there's at least one petition out there tonight with a lot of signups virtually. For lack of knowing anything else, I have no other choice but to divide the time up. I believe that for that one, there's been an assigned speaker. And so I'm going to ask you once you come up, if you have been assigned and how much time you need. And I've been told that people that are on the line have been told that they can present that they're in opposition and don't need a lot of time to speak. We'll get there when the time comes, but I want you to give that consideration before you come forward in terms of what you're going to say and how much time you're going to request. A couple of tips for you when you come up to the podium. There's a microphone there. Stand in front of the microphone, pull it down close to you. Name and address when you go to speak. Name and address first. If for whatever reasons you need to sit down and come back up again, when you come back up, always say your name before you go to speak. Don't worry about saying your address again. We've got that. But the record needs to keep track of who's talking at any particular time. Always speak clearly into the microphone. And when you're all done, To my right, the clerk has a sign-in sheet. So you'll go from the podium to the sign-in sheet, sign in, and then go back and sit down again. So having said that, we have our assistant county attorney who's going to provide you some information about the legal requirements for oral argument governing your participation or your ability to participate at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. So with that being said, Mr. Cameron Clark, I believe, is with us.
Thank you, Mr. Scarola. This is Cameron Clark. I'm an assistant county attorney. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is the time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete fact. Therefore, such requests cannot be filed until after the hearing master has submitted his recommendation to the county on September 8th. Following this date, any party wishing to address the board at its public meeting will have 10 days to submit a request for oral argument to the clerk of the Board of the County Commissioners. Therefore, for tonight's applications, if you wish to address the board at its October 13th land use meeting, you must file your request for oral argument between September 8th and the close of business on September 18th. While the board is not required to hear oral argument at its public meeting, the board can elect to hear oral argument from a party of record. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, someone who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, someone who is certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, someone who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days before tonight's hearing. Or fourth, someone who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Should the board elect to hear oral argument, parties of record will be eligible to address the board if their requests for oral argument are responsive to the hearing master's recommendation, and if they clearly set forth why oral argument is necessary to address at least one of the 4 outstanding issues that are laid out in Section 100304E of the Land Development Code. If the board elects to hear oral argument, the content of that argument shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence that is submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at the public meeting is entered into tonight's record. Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, if you plan to give any testimony or evidence tonight, I'd like you to rise now with me and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you. Okay, so having done those formalities, I think we're ready for our first petition. Brian.
The first item on tonight's agenda is agenda item C1, standard application 20-0376. The applicants are Brainerd, Lori, Joe A. Harris, and Martha Ann Evers Milligan. The request is rezoned from agricultural rural AR to agricultural single family 1 AS1. I will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Okay, and the applicant.
Hi, my name is Amber Tu. My address is 2002 Holloway Road, Plant City, Florida 33567. I'm an agent for Mr. and Mrs. Harris, who own the property at 2833 Welcome Road, Lithia, Florida, and the parcel at folio 094020200, which both parcels share a boundary. Mr. and Ms. Harris are needing to have their 2 parcels rezoned from AR to AS1. The reason behind their rezone request is so that the parcel with their home currently on it, will be a conforming lot, and their daughter and son-in-law will be able to build a new home on the vacant parcel as well. If the rezone request is granted, the Harrises will be able to assist their daughter and son-in-law with after-school care while they're at work, and in return, the Harrises' children will be close so that if the need arises, they can also help their parents out. Currently, every parcel that surrounds the Harrises, 2 parcels, is zoned for AS1, except for a less than 1 acre parcel that is zoned for AR, and that parcel is abutting on the west. In the future land use is AS1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony and development services.
Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. As noted, the request is to rezone 2 vacant parcels totaling 9.1 acres from AR agricultural rural to agricultural single family 1. The underlying comprehensive future land use designation is Res 1, therefore a maximum of 9 lots could be permitted. As noted by the applicant, they've indicated the purpose of the request is to be able to conform to non-conforming lots in order to properly subdivide and sell off one of the lots. The surrounding zoning pattern is a mixture of agricultural single family 1 to the south and west, AR to the north, and AM to the east. Staff found that the request was consistent with the existing known development pattern, noting that the AR parcels to the north, R zone, do have a plan category or Res 1, which would allow for further rezoning is consistent with the AS1 district that they're requesting, and also that all the surrounding zonings in the area have similar lot development standards with respect to minimum lot widths and rear yard setbacks. Therefore, the development patterns would be similar under the various zonings in the area. Based on these considerations, staff did find the request approval and available for any questions.
Brian, one minor question. Look at two things. Under compatibility in the staff report, 1.7. Tell me when you're there.
Yes.
Okay, and then your zoning map of the site. Okay, the first sentence, immediately adjacent to the east of the parcel or parcel zone AS1. And then look at the map. It looks
Should
like,
be west.
yeah, that's what
this is
was
direction.
intended, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, wouldn't mind making that correction.
Will do.
Okay, and the planning commission, please.
Good evening, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 1 future land use category. The site is located within the rural area and it is also located within the limits of the South Shore area-wide systems plan. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property for the purpose of subdividing the site. The zoning district is consistent with the residential 1 future land use category. The area is a combination of agricultural and residential land uses, which are compatible with the applicant's request. The request is consistent with Objective 4, as the subject property is in the rural service area, which is reserved for large lot, low-density residential uses. There are currently wetlands present on the property. The Environmental Protection Commission, the EPC, Wetlands Division, has reviewed the proposed rezoning. They have determined that a resubmittal is not necessary. And as the site plan changes, EPC staff will need to review the zoning again. Planning Commission finds this request consistent, given there's a separate approval process for wetland impacts. Overall, the rezoning would allow for development that is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, and it is also compatible with the existing development pattern found in the surrounding area. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County.
Thank you, Melissa. James, just so you know, Melissa's appearing twice in video on the screen. I don't know if that's something that can be corrected, but if not, it's okay. Is there anybody here tonight in support of this request? It just went away, by the way. I see none. Is there any opposition to this request? Okay, is there anything else from the applicant?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. And with that, we're going to close rezoning 20-0376. Brian?
The next item is agenda item C2, rezoning standard 20-0378. The applicant is Mark Bentley. The request is rezoned from OR office residential to business professional office, BPO with restrictions. Steve Beachy with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Mr. Bentley, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Scarola. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, great. May I proceed?
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Mark Bentley. My address is 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, 33602, and I have been sworn. The property under consideration this evening is located at 1211 West Fletcher Avenue. It's about 0.44 acres and it's zoned OR, and the OR district limits non-residential uses to the building footprint. which there's an existing building consists of approximately 2,100 square feet, more or less. The property is fully developed as professional office and complies with all Hillsborough County codes. The intent is to allow the second story, consisting of approximately 1,300 square feet, to be utilized as professional office. So this, with a footprint consisting of roughly 2,100 square feet, would total about 3,400 square feet. The FAR under the land use designation, which is R4, is 0.25. So development of the property would be about 70% of the total potential. No changes to the property are proposed except internally to comply with applicable building fire codes when there's a transition in the second floor to professional office. I've provided some hearing exhibits, which are a bunch of photographs, and you can have them and look at them at your leisure. Anyhow, these photos, along with the photos provided by staff, indicate the office and commercial nature of this area. Notably, there's restaurants, retail, storage, professional office immediately adjacent to the subject property. Also, this project was rezoned in 1993 and has been in existence for about 26 years, which demonstrates the compatibility with the surrounding area. It's also buffered from the residential development to the north by a lake. Staff has found the petition approvable with conditions, which we agree to those conditions. Planning Commission staff has found that the application meets the exception provision for infill, as it did when it was zoned in 1993, roughly, and is consistent with the comp plan. And that completes my comments. Thanks.
And Lee, one quick question. With respect to the restrictions?
Yeah.
The first restriction, or the second restriction, first bullet point, have a roof pitch of 4 to 12. Not seen it put quite like that before. Is that meant to be a minimum? Maybe a minimum roof pitch of 4 in 12 or 4 to 12, whatever?
I guess it would be a minimum, but Mr. Beachy's there, so that's a good point.
We will ask him, because to tie you to an exact roof pitch, I don't know. It's interesting, but let's hear
You know,
it.
like I said, it's pretty, you'll see the photos. This building's it's designed like a single family structure right now, and I'm not sure the roof pitches.
Point. It's just that being that specific is a little out of the ordinary, but okay.
Yeah, but it says, Mr. Scroll, in the event of a total demolition, and then you go to 4 to 12. But I think it's a good point we should resolve.
Development Services.
Good evening, Steve Beachy, Development Services. The request is to rezone a parcel totaling approximately 0.44 acres from office residential to business professional office. The underlying comprehensive plan designation of the subject parcel is R4. The applicant is proposing the restrictions that you have in your staff report with the intention to maintain a residential appearance. As I go to the specific restriction for the roof pitch, we put that in place as a standard pitch for to maintain a residential appearance. And I was not in the, I did not come from my desk. So I'm going to have to, I may refer to Mr. Grady if he understands but can provide some clarity. But I think we do need, we certainly can clarify that in any, in the future, if not this evening. Regarding the compatibility of the rezoning request, given the preponderance of commercial uses, CG and CN zoning districts across from the subject parcel, the introduction of BPO zoning designation on the north side of Fletcher will not alter the development pattern of commercial use along Fletcher Avenue. The lake located north of the subject parcel provides a buffer between the commercial uses along Fletcher Avenue and the single-family homes located north of the subject parcel. Staff finds the requested BPO zoning with restrictions compatible with the existing development pattern in the area, and the request is approvable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beachy. Mr. Grady, any?
Mr. Scroll, I think it'd be appropriate to add, have a minimum roof pitch of 4 to 12.
Okay, and then we'll confirm that with the applicant in a second, but for the moment, let's do that.
Because again, the intent was just ensure a minimum roof pitch on this for complete demolition and discussions with the applicant regarding offers for proposed restrictions for the redesign. That's where that came from. So again, minimum would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And then the planning commission.
Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and also within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. The proposed use for offices would not create a negative impact on the adjacent land uses. The site is surrounded by other non-residential uses along this Fletcher Avenue corridor, including other office uses, which is consistent with the future land use element policy 16.1 with regard to compatibility. A rezoning to business professional office would serve as a transition from the commercial activity along this segment of Fletcher Avenue. In addition, the proposed office use would allow the site to be a buffer for the residential uses to the north from the vehicular activity of Fletcher Avenue, consistent with future land use policy 16.2. Although the site does not technically meet commercial locational criteria as outlined in future land use policy 22.1, the site does meet an exception for office uses per future land use element policy 22.6. This policy states that office development may be considered outside of locational criteria when the office use is proposed on a parcel that is unsuitable or undevelopable for residential development. In this case, the rezoning must be to a planned development or to a zoning district restricting the use to a residentially scaled office. In this case, the parcel's proximity to the roadway makes it marginally developable for residential. The applicant has agreed to a restriction that would require any building on the property to maintain its residential design and scale, consistent with future land use policy 22.6. The Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan includes strategies that discourage strip commercial and promote utilizing compatible design techniques to ensure the mass and scale of development is integrated into the existing development pattern. And maintaining a residentially scaled office building on this stretch of Fletcher Avenue is consistent with that community plan vision. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the restrictions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Is there anybody here tonight that needs to speak in support of this request? Okay, no? Anybody in opposition to the request? Okay, I see none. And then Mr. Bentley.
Yes, sir.
I can see you. Just give me a moment. Mr. Bentley, other than anything else you might want to add to this, you heard Mr. Grady discuss adding the minimum with respect to the pitch. Just confirm with me that that's okay with you?
Yeah, I agree with that recommendation by Brian. So that first bullet point would read, have a minimum roof pitch of 4 to 12. Then bullet point number 3, Mr. Scrolla, if you read that too, it says be finished with brick or with materials that provide the appearance of brick, wood, vinyl siding, or stucco. So I think the intent there are some alternative choices. So after brick in the first sentence, we'd put or wood, vinyl siding, or stucco. So insert or, I think, would be appropriate.
I want to make sure I understand before I hear from Brian on that. With brick or?
It says be finished with brick or with materials that provide the appearance of brick, comma, or wood, vinyl siding, or stucco.
Okay.
No objection.
No objection. Okay. And how about his first bullet point? Did he add the wording?
Yeah, that's how I propose. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Bentley?
No, that'll do it. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, we'll close rezoning 20-0378.
The next item is in item D1, rezoning application PD 20-0275. The applicant is David Wright with TSP Companies Incorporated. The request is rezoned to plan development, two existing plan developments, 18-0562 and 18-1488 to a new plan development. Israel Monsanto with staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is David Wright, president of TSP Companies. Our address is PO Box 1016, Tampa, Florida, 33601. Also with me tonight is the civil engineer, Dave Ford of Absolute Engineering, and the transportation engineer, Steve Henry of Links. Tonight, I'm presenting a request for an infill residential plan development. The request is to combine two PDs that were previously approved under RZ 18-0562 and RZ 18-1488. Subject property is located on the north side of Rodine Road, west of Balm Riverview Road in Riverview. The property is currently being developed under the entitlements of the currently approved PDs. Property consists of approximately 119.45 acres. RZ 18-0562 is approved for a maximum of 407 single-family detached units, and RZ 18-1488 is approved for a maximum of 70 single-family detached units. The current request is for a maximum of 401 single-family detached units, which would be a reduction of 76 units if approved. The lot development standards proposed as stated in the project narrative and the development services staff report are compatible with surrounding developments in the immediate vicinity. The property's future land use classification is residential 4, and the property is located within the urban service area. The PD is proposing 3 access points from Rodine Road. Cross access is proposed to the north and east. The cross access to the north is proposed to connect to Heron Watch Place. And the cross access to the east will be a stub to allow future cross access if and when the property to the east develops. Cross access to the west is not proposed due to neither a stub or right-of-way being provided within the development to the west. The developer will be responsible for constructing eastbound to northbound left turn lanes into the project from Rodine Road and constructing a 5-foot sidewalk along the project's entire Rodine Road frontage. No transportation design exceptions or administrative variances are requested, and approval of the request would result in a reduction of trips potentially generated by the development by 806 average daily trips, 56 trips in the AM peak hour, and 78 trips in the PM peak hour. The potential reduction in trips would occur on Rodine Road, which currently operates at a level of service C. Hillsborough County School Board provided a capacity report indicating elementary, middle, and high school capacity does not currently exist. However, contiguous concurrency service areas have available capacity at all school levels. Additionally, the request is to combine 2 approved PDs, which have already separately gone through and received a certificate of concurrency through the preliminary plat process or entered into and met the conditions of a proportionate share development mitigation agreement. This application is presented to you with a recommendation of approval subject to conditions from Hillsborough County Development Services Department and no objections from any of the county reviewing departments, including Transportation and the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County. Planning Commission staff found the request to be consistent with the future of Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County and the Riverview Community Plan. We prepared a thorough and professional application package in compliance with the county's Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. We noticed the surrounding property owners in accordance with the county's public notice requirements. Based on the documentation submitted into the record in my testimony here tonight, I respectfully request your recommendation of approval, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, I didn't hear any discussion with respect to the issue of the connection to the estuary above. And I'd like to know what the game plan is, and I'd like to know what sort of investigation has been done into the ability to make that connection.
We met with the estuary development, the HOA, and also residents of the estuary. We are prepared to make the connection. We were prepared to donate right away and not, or dedicate right away and not make the connection, or not make the connection at all. James Ratliff delved into this issue in the transportation staff report, provided some further documentation with regard to the safety of making that connection. So we're relying on that, but we're leaving it open to whatever option the board decides is best.
Well, I mean, frankly, relying on the staff, I don't know if that's a great idea just for this purpose. They represent Hillsborough. I'd like to know maybe what, if Steve Henry is representing you from a transportation standpoint, I need to understand what potential issues exist if that connection's made, maybe from a volume standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and if you developed any opinions about it.
Okay.
Good evening, Steve Arlington Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. We have not looked at it in detail, but I can give you my opinion of it is that from a conductivity standpoint, certainly will provide conductivity between this subdivision and the subdivision to the north.
I'm sorry, conductivity?
Conductivity, correct.
So that is the ability to move
From one
back and forth?
subdivision to the other, correct.
Okay.
Now, the concern of the residents to the north is the fact of the potential cut-through traffic and cutting through their subdivision and then this one to get to Rodine as a shortcut and the potential increase in traffic that may create. Our opinion is it likely will not create a significant increase in traffic on their roadways, but it certainly will increase to some degree. So from our standpoint, we don't see the significant benefit in that because you really are just having somebody going from one house to the other. So the impact on the adjacent roadways would be insignificant if somebody had to go from one house to the other. So we don't see that as a significant benefit. It will again increase traffic in the adjacent neighborhood.
Well, so let me try to get a little more specific about it. Right
Sure.
now, you've got the intersection of Balm Riverview and Rodine Road
Correct.
that at peak hours does tend to back up.
Correct.
I'm forgetting the details, but it's non-signalized currently, or has it become signalized?
None.
It's
I
non-signalized.
believe that's correct. Yes.
So that intersection tends to back up in the peak hours. And so if you were a person, and remind me of one other thing here, the Heron Watch Place, as it proceeds sort of on I believe it's a northeasterly track away from, through the estuary and gets to Balm Riverview Road. If you go across Balm Riverview Road, I believe it's called a different name at that point, but there's a crossing there. And
I believe that's McMullen Road.
And that McMullen Road goes off and connects to a pretty broad area.
Correct.
Okay. So if you were a person that needed to go south on Rodine and you were coming from that area to the northeast, and the intersection at Rodine and Balm Riverview was backed up, what would you do?
And that's what I said. There would be an increase in traffic from when you make the connection for people that would elect to go through the subdivision and then potentially through our subdivision to shortcut to get to Rodine Road. So there certainly is that opportunity, and there would be people that will do it because you're right. People want not necessarily that it's faster, but certainly people tend to do it because they can continue to keep moving. So yes, there's no doubt about it. There would be an increase in traffic on that residential street.
Now, if I remember right, isn't that connection to the estuary, isn't that like 50 foot of right of way?
I have not looked at the right-of-way width, but I believe that is correct.
It's a local
It is a local street, yes. It is a local street with houses. The western portion of it has houses fronting on it. The eastern portion does not have houses fronting on it. So it's a collector, but the western portion does have single-family homes fronting on the roadway.
Now, having said all this, that roadway from the estuary was platted to the property line, right?
Correct, yes.
It was intended to be extended at some point.
That would be my.
Is it your opinion? I mean, if it's not, I mean, why would you have platted it?
No, I agree, yes.
So you think it was intended to be extended?
It was intended to be connected to the adjacent property, potentially not connected so that it would connect directly to Rodine Road. But yes, it was a stub out that would allow for interconnection.
All right. So has anybody done, whether you or Hillsborough County, has anybody done a trip distribution analysis?
We have not done a specific trip distribution analysis to evaluate the adjacent roadways and what the distribution of traffic may be with that connection. Our position is that from the developer standpoint, that this is something that is being acquired by the board and by the staff as far as a connection. In his viewpoint, his subdivision, which our analysis shows, operates at an acceptable level of service without the connection. So we don't need the connection. The connection really is something that is driven by the board and by the land development code to provide this interconnection. So from our standpoint, when we evaluated the project originally and how the zonings were done, there was no interconnection. And that's how our analysis was done. But if you're going to look at what this might do, again, it will definitely increase some of the traffic on the adjacent streets and potentially increase some of the traffic through this subdivision.
Well, I hear you, and I know where it came from. The other side of this coin is if that's the intent of the land development code or the comprehensive plan, I think we need to understand what it is that we're actually doing. And in that respect, I haven't seen any sort of distribution analysis, although, and Mr. Ratliff, I'm going to ask you as well here shortly, but I saw the statement in the transportation staff report, and it's a conclusionary statement. Okay? It's not a safety issue. We looked at volumes. It's said in the transportation report, but I would think to look at volumes, you need to do some sort of distribution analysis.
Correct. No, I would agree 100%. You'd need to do counts at the major intersections within the area, and then look at where the people are going and what the shortest route is and the level of service of the adjacent intersections and what that might do.
All right. Thank you for that testimony. Mr. Ford, I know you wanted to come up. Come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dave Ford with Absolute Engineering, Inc., 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 925, Tampa 33602. First of all, this sounds familiar is because we've been here before.
Yeah.
And the first time that we went through the process, we were required by county staff to show the connection to the north. The citizens that live in the subdivision to the north, and I recognize some here tonight, spoke out against that connection. The board subsequently voted to eliminate the connection. There it was. Then we came back through the process again for just what we're trying to do tonight, just to combine the two PDs. And we were denied by the board because we did not have the connection to the north. But we were allowed to come back in again if we showed the connection to the north. So here we are tonight. The developer is more than willing to put the road in if he has to, or plat a 50-foot right-of-way for a future road connection whenever the time may be deemed that it's necessary. Plat a 50-foot right-of-way, build a portion of the road and barricade the rest so that there's no traffic connection north and south. He's willing to do either one of those options. And just to let you know, the subdivisions, both the PDs we're talking about here tonight, are fully developed. All the infrastructure is in the ground, has been inspected and accepted by Hillsborough County. There's been a 50-foot swath set aside until this thing is, until a decision is made as to what to be done. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Well, no, I appreciate that, Mr. Ford. I think we know, how it got here. But I'm not sure that the answer of we're willing to do either works in this case, because really the county has directed at this point. The Board of County Commissioners has said we want a connection. And so the only question in my mind from this point forward is, well, okay, so I'm here to find facts. And if we make the connection, what's going to happen? Because I know I'm going to hear some concerns about it. I haven't heard of any distribution analysis yet to show what is likely to occur there. But having said that, I still have to talk to James Ratliff. If you disagree with where I'm headed, let me know, because I'm interested. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I would be doing here, because I've already heard the zoning before, and I've heard it both ways.
Yes, so I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
We just want to get this approved so we can combine the two PDs. That's all we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Okay. Anything else from the applicant? No. Okay. I saw a no from the applicant. All right, and then we'll do development services.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Good evening, Israel Monsanto Development Services. As the applicant noted, this is a rezoning of two existing planned development districts, PD 181488 and PD 180562, into a new single plan development. The subject site is located on the north side of Rodin Road, west of Bond River Road, Riverview, and is more or less 119 acres in size. The future land use is Res 4. This new PD will reduce the overall number of units to 401. Current development standards will be maintained for the lots, for each of the lots. The proposed PD will have 3 access points on Rodin Road along the south. The proposed PD will connect with the Estuary subdivision via Heron Watch Place to the north, and also will provide a stop out to the east for future roadway extensions. The site is located in an area mostly consisting of single-family residential uses, agriculture, and vacant land. Surrounding properties are currently approved for residential single-family residential subdivisions with comparable development standards as those being proposed today. Our department has received letters from nearby residents opposing to the road connection extending to Heron Watch Place. The objections are similar to those concerns expressed during the rezoning 181488, citing code through traffic, safety, impacts to the neighborhood streets, and road capacity, among others. Transportation staff has reviewed this request and does not object to these connections. Planning Commission staff supports the connectivity to public roads to the north, citing policies and objectives from the comprehensive plan. Cross-access to the west is not feasible as the adjacent parcel to the west is part of a platted subdivision with private streets and with no stop-out provided to the subject site. By combining the two existing PDs, the total maximum number of units is being reduced, as well as the maximum density compared to today's approved residential entitlements. The request is compatible with the surrounding residential development pattern. Therefore, Development Services staff recommends approval with conditions. And I'm available if you have any questions.
Mr. Monsanto, I appreciate that. I would like to speak with James Ratliff, please.
Hello. For the record, James Ratliff, Development Services Transportation.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yes, with respect to this issue, we did not run trip distribution per se. What we did was we looked at the amount of trips that were utilizing the roadway within the estuary preserve drive. And essentially that was, we estimated around, took that from the traffic analysis of the rezoning for that project. That's about 2,581 trips, or just over 50% of the capacity of a local roadway. So there's still about 50% of that capacity available. The proposed project that we're talking about here tonight generates approximately 3,785 average daily trips. So I highly doubt that there would be the majority of project traffic going to the north. When we, when you take into account the configuration of the project and just the attractiveness of Rodin there. So we did not think that, based on that percentage that the roadway was under capacity at this point, that we needed to do further analysis on that issue.
So James, I think you heard what I outlined happens there at the corner of Rodin and Balm Riverview Road. Do you see the point about people that would be traveling down Balm Riverview Road to the east, so eastbound trips that know that at the peak hour the intersection's backed up and are looking for a way to go westbound on Rodin Road? The obvious direction to go at that point would be diagonally across that path that would take you through the estuary, through the new project, and over to Rodin. Do you see that?
Absolutely, and I do think what Steve Henry said earlier is very true. That there is going to be some cut through traffic. You cannot prevent that. I mean, connectivity is going to enable that to occur anywhere you have connectivity. But there are things that minimize that. And so there are 3 speed speed bumps within the estuary project. We could also look at having the connection between the two designed with a chicane, which would also further discourage cut-through traffic. So there are other things you could do to, further dissuade people from cutting through. But again, there's absolutely nothing you can do short of closing off the connection completely that would eliminate it 100%.
And can you make a comment about if it is in fact a 50-foot right-of-way, is it a local road?
It is a local road meeting county standards, so it's fully compliant. It's a TS3 roadway, 50-foot right-of-way.
And can you make any comment about the capacity of that road once you open this connection up?
Well, again, based on our estimate of that the road within the estuary today is only at 51% of capacity, there being about 2,500 average daily trips of capacity left on that road before it would trigger a collector. We don't believe it's going to get anywhere near that level.
Statement, if that's true, is that your testimony? You don't believe it's going to get anywhere near that?
Correct. We believe the majority of the project traffic from this traffic will go south to Rodine. There will be some that goes north, but generally speaking, we think people again are going to kind of go the path of least resistance, and typically that is not going to be through neighborhoods that are where you may have vehicles parked on the side of the road and the speed bumps and things of that nature. So.
And that very pertinent statement in your staff report, I think it's the third bullet point under the summary and recommendations, if I remember right, that says we've looked at the volumes. Can you read that one into the record? Because I don't have the report in front of me.
I've got a lot of bullets. Sorry about that. Let me see. Were you referring to the summary at the top, or is this in the section at the back that's
the top? And I think it's the third bullet point down or so that says we've looked at traffic volumes, and it says we don't believe there's a safety issue.
I'm sorry. Yes, staff reviewed the traffic volumes, configuration characteristics, and crash summary data for the roadways within the adjacent project to the north. The estuary, and determine that the LDC required connection between these projects can not only be done safely, but can minimize risk for bicyclists and pedestrians within and through these projects to area destinations. And so with respect to the traffic volumes, that was what I was referring to, was looking at the estimating the amount of trips that are on the estuary boulevard roadway based on the original rezoning transportation analysis. And
I hear you, but I think the important part of that conclusion is that you believe that the connection will result in a safe connection.
Correct. We believe that it can be made safely.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. And to the Planning Commission.
For the record, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area, and it's also located located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The request seeks to combine the current existing plan developments, 2 different plan developments, into one plan development with 401 single-family detached units. The proposed single-family residential units would allow for development that is comparable to the suburban residential development pattern in the surrounding area. The proposed development is consistent with Goal 2 of the Riverview Community Plan, which seeks to encourage attractive residential development that complements the surrounding character and promotes housing diversity. The proposed 401 units maximizes the efficiency of the subject site and facilitates low-density residential development, which is allowed under the residential 4 future land use category. The subject site is located in the urban service area where 80% or more of new growth is directed per the comprehensive plan. The site plan submitted by the applicant indicates a vehicular connection from the subject property to Heron Watch Place, a roadway maintained by Hillsborough County. The connection would provide access from the subject site to the subdivision to the north. Access points are also provided along eastern and southern boundaries of the site, and policy 16.7 of the future land use element requires a residential neighborhood to include efficient systems of internal circulation and street stub-outs to connect adjacent neighborhoods together. Per policy 16.3 of the future land use element, development and redevelopment is required to be integrated with the adjacent land uses through the creation of like uses and transportation and pedestrian connections. The request satisfies the intent of these connectivity policies of the future land use element. Overall, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding development pattern. The request would encourage residential development that complements the surrounding character and promotes housing diversity per the Riverview Community Plan. The application also demonstrates compliance with interconnectivity policies and promotes infill development within the area. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, and before I go on, Mr. Wright, I have a question for you. So go ahead and say your name, just.
David Wright for the record.
I guess I'm a little perplexed as to the reason we're here. There's approved zonings currently. Can you fill me in a little bit on what the plan is?
The reason we're here is because under the first PD 18-0562, more units were approved than can actually be developed. So the developer is seeking flexibility in order to be able to transfer some of the units over to the other PD 18-1488.
So what's the total number of units?
7 units.
7 units?
Yes.
This is all about 7 units?
Correct.
Wow. Okay, thank you for that. All right, is there anybody here today in support of this request? Anybody in support? Okay, no, there's opposition here tonight. So I understand we might have a primary speaker. Can I see the primary speaker come forward? Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening, my name is Alan Brown, White Alan Brown, 11414 Sandstone Rock Drive, Riverview, Florida, 33568, and I'm president of the Estuary Homeowners Association. 5 minutes for me, please, and 7 minutes for Danielle, if you wouldn't mind, Mrs. Ackerman.
Okay, hold on for 1 second. You needed 5 minutes?
Yep, 5 minutes should be fine for myself.
And then who else?
Mrs. Ackerman, 7 minutes?
7 minutes?
She's right behind me. We're shock and awe.
I don't need the extra comments, sir. Just tell me. I'm trying to get the timing worked out. I got a 5 and a 7, okay? And then who else? We've got a lot of people on the line.
Whoever would like to speak online, yes.
I see others that need to speak. All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you for being here and understanding. I think you understand the position that we're in with the extension of Heron Watch Place to Rodine Road. It makes no sense, as you mentioned. The PDs are already completely developed, and the Board of County Commissioners understood that last year. We have a petition that we've submitted of 230 residents objecting to this action, and ask you to honor that, as well as the 70 letters that are signed by multiple residents. Multiple letters signed by several residents in the household. That's indeed something that we put together, and they've been anxious to share. Our issues are the same as they were last year, only they're exaggerated, magnified this year. The estuary was not planned to have a neighborhood street to have that kind of a cut through from one major to the other. Long Riverview is congested and more traffic is on there, as you know, and one of the things that we've missed is that on Estuary Preserve, that there's a playground there where young children play and run off, and the streets are, the streets are narrow there. The streets are only about 20 feet.
Let me stop you for 1 second.
Okay.
You said something very important. You said, we know it wasn't made to have a connection from one I think you used the word arterial, I don't know, one arterial to the other. How do you know that?
I'm sorry, that I said what now?
You said that we know that Heron Place was not intended to connect one arterial to the other. If I need to get the record read back, I will. But
Please do that, yes, because I didn't,
can we do a read back? It's a.
unless I said last year, the county commissioner said.
No. This was a question. This was the issue. You made a statement about the road itself and that it wasn't intended to connect one major to the other, I think is the word you used. One major to the other. Well, if you don't, you don't. Now, I heard it. I heard you say it. So I can ask you, do you believe that that road was not made to connect Palm Riverview Road to Rodine Road?
Originally, yes.
Originally what?
That it was not made to connect because of the.
It was not made to connect?
It was not made to connect because of the, it's only 20 feet wide as far as the cars you can see on the overhead, that only 2 trucks can get by. All of the other.
Hold on.
Okay.
So this is very pertinent to the question. I've heard testimony now that 20-foot road is not a problem for that. So how do you know it wasn't made to connect the Palm Riverview Road to Rodine Road?
I had, back in 2003, when it was originally planned, it was in the documents, and I don't have those documents in front of me, but that wasn't planned as a connection through there.
Well, wasn't the road stubbed out to the property line?
It's stubbed out on both sides, but one is to a creek and the other is to just land.
Right? So what were they subbing out to?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Go ahead with your testimony.
Let's see. Okay. Well, anyway, for the park is where the kids play, right through here with the truck and cars coming through there, and that's the main thoroughfare. Last year, we have had even more things that have come up. You can see, well, that's once again the road and the 20-foot roads. I know that you are guided by plans and policies, but one of the reasons why I say that the road doesn't look like in that neighborhood it was connected or meant to connect to go through. These are the roads that connect one major road to the other. They have a center divider. They have fences on each side or something. They have 4 lanes, 2 going each way. If you take a look at all of the other connecting major roads there. So why would we think that Palm Riverview Road and Rodine Road would be connected through 20 foot that goes by a children's park? I don't know. So anyway, I know your plan, I know you're guided by policies and procedures, but I sure hope that you take a look at the safety issue here for the good of the people, for safety, for security, for quality of life of the people. And those actions and values.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker. Yes, ma'am. Or sir, whoever is going to be speaking for 7 minutes.
Hello, Danielle Ackerman, 11501 Sandstone Rock Drive. First off, I'd like to say that it's very surprising we're here for 7 homes, 7. Okay, that's very frustrating. But also, it is difficult that we are unable to showcase our opposition in the same way as normal. We're typically able to fill an auditorium, which we obviously cannot do that today, but we're doing the best we can. We feel quite misled by Hillsborough County in a few ways. I have Exhibit 1A and 1B. Hillsborough County approved the construction of Ridgewood on the condition that it did not connect to the estuary. Point 2, prior to the initiation of PD 19-0125, a letter was sent to the estuary residents stating that a new PD would be filed on the condition that this connection would not be pursued, which according to the letter, the county confirmed they would not be pursuing. According to the Hillsborough County zoning website, the goal is to provide for public safety and protect the character of neighborhoods. The connection of Heron Watch in the estuary neighborhood to RZ-PD 20-0275 is counterproductive to both public safety and the protection of existing neighborhoods. The comprehensive plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County specifically mentions safety of pedestrians in Hillsborough County in comparison to major metropolitan cities. Yet we are consistently ranked among the deadliest for pedestrians, currently second worst per capita in the nation, worse than New York, Boston, Chicago, Seattle, and all other American cities except for Daytona Beach. Allowing a connection from Rodine Road to Balm Riverview McMullen, ultimately creating a shortcut from 301 to Boyette via Heron Watch, will create a thoroughfare and turn our existing neighborhood into a dangerous place for residents and those using the neighborhood as a shortcut. As my neighbors and I have previously mentioned, our neighborhood is not equipped with bike lanes or crosswalks, and our roadways are congested with regular street parking. It was mentioned that we do have 3 speed bumps, all of which are not in front of homes and not in front of the park. They are in the one section that is not lined by homes, so therefore not protecting anybody. Current conditions in our neighborhood have created delays for emergency vehicles to reach their destination due to narrow roadways and cars parked on the street. Even though they were recommended by BOCC member Overman, there were no additional traffic studies done to determine how the neighborhood would be able to support the cars from PD 18-0562, PD 18-1488, and the impact of cut-through traffic from Rodine, Balm Riverview, and McMullen. No studies on speed or volume from cut-through traffic, and none on distribution analysis, as you mentioned. Additionally, based on the estimations provided by the county via the transportation analysis for the traffic generated within the neighborhoods, it appears that the connecting neighborhoods together would overload the estuary roads. See Exhibit B. The addition of 401 homes connecting to the estuary would create 3,785 additional two-way trips, resulting in 127.3 of the available estuary road capacity, or 27.3 over the available capacity. It must be noted that the 127.3 capacity or over capacity does not include any cut-through traffic numbers, as no study has been conducted to determine the impact of adding a thoroughfare through the estuary. The comprehensive plan also states that in relation to the road networks and connectivity concerns, the plans must effectively and safely balance the needs of the people getting from point A to point B with the needs of the people along the path. There are approximately 105 homes in the estuary with driveways that back into the main path that cars will travel through the neighborhood if this connection is permitted. Living in those homes are numerous families with small children, such as my own. There is also a small community park with no fence located on the main road. Allowing this connection does not address the needs of the people along the path. In addition, the only accidents the studies addressed were those that occurred inside the estuary. None of the numerous accidents that have occurred on Balm Riverview, McMullen, or Rodine roads. My husband is one of 4 boys, not 3, as many of our acquaintances and even our friends believe. His youngest brother is a twin, and tragically, one of the twins was hit and killed by a car near the entrance to their neighborhood a month and a half prior to turning 2. He was 11 at the time. Every one of these meetings is a reminder of the little boy we are helpless to save. Having experienced the lifelong grief that comes from losing someone you love, we are here asking that you consider the dire consequences of your decision. To you, it may be a policy and percentage chance that you are willing to take, but to us, the impact is real. People can be impacted by your decisions with far greater consequence than can ever be estimated in the developmental review procedures manual. My children and those in the estuary and Ridgewood are more important than the amount of time a commuter spends in their vehicle. Some people may say safety concern. There's no safety concern. You can't prove something will happen. Let's consider a few examples based in math. 1, made up. If you have a road with no pedestrians on it and no cars, there's a 100% chance that there will not be any vehicle to pedestrian incidents. But add 1 car and 1 pedestrian to the road, and you have infinitely increased the chances of an incident between automobile and pedestrian. A real life analogy. As an analogy, let's consider COVID-19. The experts advise that people should practice social distancing. This advice was given so that the spread of the virus could be slowed. We stopped doing things we love, like going to lightning games, concerts, church, zoning, hearing master meetings, in order to flatten the curve. This is based on statistics. Mainly, the more people gathering in groups, the more cases of the virus. Now, had we not stopped gatherings, you couldn't guarantee that you'd get the virus while at a game or at Robert Saunders Public Library. You couldn't prove that something would happen. Similarly, the chances, statistics.
Ma'am, I'm trying to give you a little bit of latitude, but we're not doing the COVID thing tonight. So please try to just stick to the
The
petition.
statistics of an incident occurring between a vehicle and a pedestrian or bicyclist increases when you put more of them together on the road. So let's reduce the risk and let's social distance our vehicles and thoroughfares from our neighborhoods. In the previous two hearings, Mr. Scarloa, yourself, you have noted the cut-through traffic poses a significant risk in your recommendations. The risk is even greater with this addition of the larger neighborhood. Please recommend that the connection be omitted.
All right, thank you very much for your testimony. All right, and we had somebody else that needed a minute, I think. At least one minute. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mara Hutchison. I am a resident at 11603 Heron Watch Place. My home is one of those homes that if we pull out of our driveway, we back into that busy road that will be a complete disaster. I think one thing that also was not brought up tonight is that there is a new development at the front of our community, and that is a business that's coming in. That has already been approved, and that is already causing a ton of traffic at the front of our community. In fact, it's damaging our community. The island at our community has been damaged because cars are always turning around up there. If we bring more cars through this neighborhood, I just don't know how that's going to be any good. And the fact that we're fighting over this for 7 homes, I can't believe the greed. We live in a lively community. There are people all ages. Every day we're walking, biking as a family. We're not going to be able to do that anymore if this much traffic comes through our community.
All right.
My daughter just has one quick thing to say.
Absolutely.
I like
Good
to
evening.
play outside.
Name, please. Name, please.
This is Claire.
My name's Claire, and I like to play outside.
Hold on one second. This is Claire Hutchison, and she's at 11603 Heron Watch.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Claire.
I like to play outside, and I can't if there's too much cars, because I don't want to get hit by a car.
Okay, thank you
Please
again.
consider our statement.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, just want to make sure I'm clear in the audience, nobody else in opposition that needs to speak. Okay.
I'd like to speak.
The virtual members, before we put them on, I want them to hear that we are down to approximately 3 minutes or so of the 15. I do want to make sure that anybody who wants to or needs to participate, become a party of record, can get on the record. So the easiest thing for you to say when you come on, if you need to speak, is your name, address, and that you're opposed to the project if you're opposed. If you're going to speak longer than that, I need to know about it as you go to speak, and we need to discuss it, because right now we've had most of the time taken up by what was purported to be the primary speaker. So with that, let's go ahead and give it a try. Let's go through the list. If you don't need to speak, then just say I don't need to speak now.
I can't get my mouse.
First speaker is Michael Bottoms.
Sir, Michael Bottoms, I just simply oppose 11415 Sandstone Rock. Thank you.
Sir.
Smith, Lauren Smith.
Lauren Smith, 11504 Sandstone Rock Drive. I oppose.
Next.
Valerie Horozas.
Yes, Valerie Harose, 11511 Heron Watch Place, and oppose.
William Horose.
William Harose, 11511 Heron Watch Place, Riverview, Florida, 33569. I vehemently and strongly oppose and want to remind everybody we live in a republic where the people rule and not the officials.
Tom McGavin.
Tom Ackerman, 11523 Sandstone Rock Drive. I oppose.
Sir.
Cynthia Brown.
Cynthia Brown, 11607 Heron Watch Place, and I definitely oppose.
Thank you, ma'am.
Walter Brown?
Walter Brown, 11607 Heron Watch Place, and I oppose.
Thank you, sir.
Evelyn Busey? Laketra Caliborn?
Sorry, I'm muting my phone. Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead.
I am Laketra Claiborne, 11416 Sandstone Rock Drive, and I strongly oppose.
Ma'am.
Dorian Jones? Christopher Shelby?
Chris Shelby, 11514 Scarlet Ibis Place, and I oppose.
Melissa Shelby?
Hi, I'm Melissa Shelby, 11514 Scarlet Ibis Place, and I strongly oppose.
Melissa Muse?
Melissa Muse, 11505 Sandstone Rock Drive, and I strongly oppose the connection.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jessica McGavin?
Jessica McAvan, 11523 Sandstone Rock Drive. I strongly oppose.
Thank you.
Roger Yokel? Sir, we can't hear you. Is there anyone else that we haven't called
Yes,
that has signed up?
yes, this is Chris Theobaldo at 11509 Heron Watch Place. I strongly oppose.
Thank you, sir.
Tom Adams, go ahead.
I'm sorry, yes, my name is Chris Richardson, 11501 Blue Crane Street, and I oppose.
Hold on 1 minute, sir. Thank you. I did get that, but I didn't necessarily, did we get the address on that? Did you understand the address and name?
11501 Blue Crane Street.
Can you repeat your name, please?
Christopher Richardson.
Go ahead, Thomas Smith.
Thomas Smith, 11504 Sandstone Rock Drive, and I oppose.
I believe that's everyone. Is there anyone else?
All right, thank you for that. Now, hold on a second. Is there anybody in the audience that didn't answer me before when I said, is there anybody left that needs to speak still? Raise your hand if you still need to speak. Yes. Okay. 2 people? 3 people? Okay, just want to be on the record. All right, come on, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. David Ackerman, 11501 Sandstone Rock Drive, and I oppose.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Catherine Brown, 11414 Sandstone Rock Drive, and I oppose.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Seth Hutchison, 11603 Heron Watch Place. I oppose.
And thank you, sir. All right, have we got everybody in the audience now? Just want to make sure. Anybody else? Anybody online still?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have one.
That needs to speak.
Lucy Cardella, 11636 Palmetto Pine Street. I oppose.
Thank you, ma'am. One more chance. All right, I'm closing down opposition testimony. Anything from staff, Development Services?
I believe James Ratliff wants to respond to some of the comments. Before I do that, I'll just note for those who spoke in opposition here in attendance that Maricel Madrano with the county staff is available at the rear of the room. If you have questions regarding filing an oral argument in order to preserve your right to speak to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, she's right straight in the back of the room if you have any questions about that at all. Okay, and anything else from the planning commission at all? Well, yeah, let's see. Does the planning commission need anything else?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, and James Ratliff?
Yes. For the record, James Ratliff, Development Services. I did want to address, I believe it was the second speaker, had prepared a graphic showing that the road would be 127.3% above capacity. And I believe that was created assuming 100% of the project traffic would be going north through the estuary, which again is just not a realistic assumption. So I did want to just point that out for the record. Also, in response to one of your questions about, was it intended for a stub out? Going back to the original zoning for the estuary, which was 05-1202, there was a cross-access stub out shown, albeit in a different location. Subsequent zoning modifications, including 07-1121, 12-0038, 19-0281, all showed cross-access in the location where it was actually built and where the connection would occur today. So that has been on the books since the very beginning approval of the project as a roadway connection that would occur. And okay, lastly, I would just like to kind of leave you with what I think the issue with the status quo situation is today. It appears that there was the perception of a problem, but instead of maybe taking a scalpel to it, we took a sledgehammer and we disallowed all access of any kind, including emergency and bicycle and pedestrian. And so there's a graphic I prepared in the staff report that shows in the current status quo condition, somebody who has a friend in the adjacent neighborhood would have to bike around on a significant portion of roadways without facilities in order to get to a house that could be 100 feet away. And so that definitely is a safety concern, not to mention the loss of even the emergency access. And so I did want to just point out that, again, I think that's what the why there is an issue with the status quo, notwithstanding all of the other code issues and policies.
Thank you, James. Appreciate the testimony. Okay, Mr. Wright, final rebuttal.
It's Steve Henry. I just want to go through one of the things that you talked about, the cut through, and what I want to try and do is just kind of go through the unique characteristics of what we have here and why I know Mr. Ratliff said that they don't expect to have much cut through or the capacity, but the way this was designed, the way it was originally built, I think there may be more cut through than what is projected. Let me explain why. So
you kind of faded off the microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll explain at least what my thinking is on this. So the original zoning is this strip of land here. So when that was designed and it is now actually built, there is a straight shot that runs from Rodine straight up here. So the issue is conductivity is good. And from a transportation standpoint, as Mr. Ratliff had said, so that you don't have to get out onto the extra roadways and reduce that traffic. And that is a good thing. But in this instance, because of the way these were permitted and the way they were built, it's going to increase the cut-through traffic, which I think is going to offset that conductivity. And the reason I say that is you've got, as you said, McMullen Road, which goes all the way up to Boyette Road.
McMullen's the one to the north.
Correct. This goes all the way up to the north. You've got a straight shot here, and then as you get to this intersection, you then have a straight shot down to Rodine Road. So if this were a circuitous route through here, that conductivity would be great because people wouldn't elect to do that. But because of the way that the roads were built, the original road here, and the way this was built because of the zoning and the limited property that they had to be able to do that, you will have an increase in the cut-through traffic through the neighborhood. So just wanted to give you that background as to, I know you had before had indicated, the concern of cut-through traffic through the neighborhood. But I think it's just the unique characteristics of the way this was developed and the road system that we'll have, that you will have that increase. And so that is a concern from a transportation standpoint. I fully get the county's conductivity and wanting cross access, but I think in this case, because of the roadway system that we have, then it's not a good idea. So that's the difference between what the code says for the conductivity and what we have here, which is going to create the traffic and the concerns of the residents. So that's the difference. And that's why I think in this instance, it's not a good idea to have this connection, even though it was put there because of the configuration of the property. That's what's going to create the issue with what you've ultimately would have.
I guess my inquisitive look at the moment is what I'm actually doing with this piece of information. You've already been through a zoning process without a connection, and we're denied.
Correct. Well, correct. We had this piece was zoned first with no connection.
Right.
So the roadway system was put in with no connection.
Right.
It was put in with a straight shot because there was no connection.
Right.
We then zoned the piece to the east.
Okay, now here's where I get a little confused because, you know, I hear an awful lot of cases. Did I hear a major mod at one time for the two pieces together?
Correct. So the last one that came through, they wanted to combine them. And the board denied it because of the cross connection.
Right.
But they had already previously.
Hold on, for the lack of a cross connection.
For the lack of crossing. They had previously approved this one with no cross access.
Well, there was a different board.
Oh, I fully understand. But because of the circumstances that you've got, the roadway configuration, that was the right decision. I still don't believe that the decision that the board made is the right decision, again, given the configuration of the roadways that are out there. Again, much different if you had a very circuitous route, but you don't.
So if as an applicant right now, you're basically telling me, hey, if I get a recommendation for approval for this zoning, I'm not worried whether you recommending with the connection or without the connection. Is that what I hear?
The developer is not, from his standpoint, he has said he would build it. If at the end of the day, the board says you have to build it and approves it to build it, then he would build it. But he is also more than happy not to build it. He's got a zoning that currently does not require that connection.
Again, either way, you're as long as you get a recommendation for approval of your zoning, I presume that's why you're here in front of me, is asking for recommendations for approval.
Yes.
It doesn't matter to you whether it's recommended with the connection or without the connection.
From our standpoint, yes.
Yes, it doesn't matter?
Well, it doesn't matter from the standpoint of the developer is, again, willing to build either one. So yes, he's looking for a recommendation from the zoning hearing master for the project. But he has not, he'll go either way, with it or without it.
But I think you've told me that you think that it's probably not a good idea here.
From my professional opinion, I think that the cross connection is not a good idea. Yes, correct. In this instance, not that cross access is not a good thing, but in this particular instance.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wright, wrap it up.
David Wright. First of all, I'd just like to clear up one issue. The letter that was displayed during the office and testimony, that was from a prior zoning application, and at which time we did have an agreement from staff that they were not going to require the connection. So I did not misrepresent that to the citizens. Also wanted to point out that under capital improvements project 696-45145, that is the signalization of Balm River View Road and Rodine Road. That is currently in design right now.
It is. Is it funded?
It doesn't say on this update that I have here. Part of the reason that we're here is the county used to have a process called a unified development plan. They did away with that process for residential zonings, which forced us to have to come back to a PD modification. Otherwise, we would have just done a unified development plan and transferred the units without even going through this process involving the connection. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. The comprehensive plan requires us to have the connection in order to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. We've said all along that we support not putting the connection in. So I've got a transportation analysis that meets the requirements of a PB zoning, recommendation from Development Services and Transportation of approval with conditions and a finding consistency with comprehensive plan. So we would still request your consideration and recommendation of approval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. I appreciate it. And with that, we're going to close rezoning PD 20-0275.
The next item, agenda item, again, D2 was continued at the beginning of the hearing, so the next final item then is agenda item D3. It's rezoning PD 20-0472. The applicant's DR Horton Incorporated. Tanya Chappelle with county staff will provide staff recommendation after presentation of the hearing by the applicant. I will be handing out to the clerk, we have a transportation report and revised staff report to address some changes the applicant's going to be requesting regarding buffering and screening. The revised report that I'll be handing out does not incorporate the transportation conditions, but we will subsequently amend that to incorporate those into. But again, for the record, the transportation comments include those conditions, and it'll just be merely a matter of incorporating them in our report.
Okay, thank you for that.
Clerk now.
Yep, thank you for that, Brian. And the applicant, good evening.
Good evening. DeBarrero, Community Planner with Height Design, 5904A Hampton Oaks Parkway, Tampa, Florida, 33610. I'm here representing D.R. Horton, the applicant tonight. With me, I have Angela Matthews from D.R. Horton, Jeremy Couch from Tampa Civil, Steve Henry from Links and Associates, and Chris Steigler from WRA. This evening, we're here to talk about a 52-acre piece of property on the west side of Williams Road. We're requesting a rezoning from agricultural residential to planned development for 72 townhomes. There'll be one access point off of Williams Road, as well as an emergency access. We've requested a design exception to LDC section 60207 for Williams Road. We've also requested a variance to LDC 60603, urban scenic roadway buffer for Williams Road. And we're also here requesting an additional variance tonight that I'd like to submit for section 60606 buffer and screening requirements for the elimination of the required 5-foot type A buffer screening on the west and south property boundaries.
Okay, was Development Services already aware of this?
Yes.
Yes, we're aware.
Okay.
So over the past week, we have been working with staff as well as the Transportation Department on the updated conditions of approval that Brian just provided you. And the only change we have is currently the draft conditions say that the general site plan was submitted on May 29th. The most recent one was submitted on July 28th. So we just wanted to make that change as well. And we're here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, I don't have any right now, but thank you.
Great.
And Development Services.
Tanya Chappella, Development Services. I'm presenting a revised report and it needs further modifications. So a second revised report will be presented after this hearing. Transportation staff has submitted comments that have been placed into the record and will be incorporated into the revised staff report, as Brian Grady already stated before. And for the transportation questions and information, James Radley from transportation staff will be answering questions. Changes on my report consist of modifications to the conditions to add setbacks from the PD boundary and to the lot line. Conditions 3, 4, and 5 were added or amended to accommodate variations to buffering and screening requirements. and to the scenic roadway buffer provisions. Conditions 1, 6, 7, 8, and 9 will be modified, and 2 prior to certification conditions will be added to address transportation requirements. Section 1.3, analysis of recommended conditions of the staff report will be also amended accordingly. So the applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 52 acres from agricultural rural to planned development to allow a total of 72 single-family attached townhomes. The surrounding area is a mixture of residential and commercial development along Williams Road. Residential developments with similar densities and a mobile home park exist in the immediate area on the east and west side of Williams Road. Adjacent to the property, the zoning districts are AR and RZ-3. The proposed density of 1.4 dwelling units per acre is consistent with the surrounding single-family lots density. An adjacent property to the north is owned by the Hillsborough County School District and allocates an institutional facility. The 10-foot type B buffer is being provided for impact mitigation to the proposed residential project. As the applicant mentioned, variations have been requested to the Land Development Code Part 60603 Urban Scenic Roadway Buffer and to the Land Development Code Buffer and Screening Requirements. Also, a design exception has also been requested to the LDC 60207 for wood.
Can you hold on for 1 second?
Yes.
We do need you to share your webcam. Thank you. Go ahead.
Staff finds the request compatible with the surrounding development pattern and recommends approval with conditions. I'd be glad to answer your questions. Jane Bradley from the transportation staff is available for questions too.
I think we probably want to get that audio. So we lost about 2 sentences. If we can back up just 2 sentences and repeat your conclusion.
I'm not sure where did I stop, but variations have been requested to the Land Development Code Part 60603 Urban Scenic Roadway Buffer for Williams Road and to the Land Development Code Part 60606 Buffer and Screening Requirements. A design exception has also been requested to the LDC 60207 for Williams Road. The staff finds the request compatible with the surrounding development pattern and recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you for your testimony. And the Planning Commission, please.
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the residential 4 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and also located within the limits of the Thanona-Sassa Community Plan. The applicant is proposing 72 dwelling units, which does not meet the minimum density requirements as outlined in Future Land Use Policy 1.2. This policy states that new development or redevelopment in the urban service area must occur at a density that is at least 75% of the allowable density of the future land use category, unless the development meets the criteria of Future Land Use Policy 1.3, the policy that includes a list of exceptions to the minimum density requirements. One of these exceptions is development that would have an adverse impact on environmental features on the site or adjacent to the property. Because the site contains 25.89 acres of wetlands, which is approximately half of the total acreage of the site, and because the site is adjacent to the Tampa Bypass Canal, the proposed density is consistent with environmental exception to minimum density. It should be noted that the on-site wetlands are comprised of both natural wetlands and man-made water bodies. Man-made water bodies or borrow pits are considered wetlands as outlined in the Future Land Use Element Policy 13.3. In addition, the site meets the compatibility exception to minimum density as well. Though the site is in the urban service area and the overall area does include a few scattered duplexes and multifamily developments, the predominant development pattern is single-family residential and public or quasi-public uses. If the subject property were to develop at a maximum density that's allowed to be considered in the residential for future land use category, there would likely be compatibility concerns based upon the surrounding single-family development pattern. The proposed planned development will be providing another housing option in the area, which will help meet the vision of the Thonotosassa Community Plan. Goal 4 of this community plan promotes diversity in housing type and styles to help counter a generic suburban look. Providing townhome units would also be consistent with policy direction in the community design component of the future land use element. Specifically, policy 1-1.1 encourages the provision of a variety of housing types and densities. Adding 72 townhome units to this area would be complementary to the existing uses and would be a natural extension of the land uses in the area. The proposed use not only meets the intent of the residential for future land use category, it also fits well into the character of the community, which is based on policy direction in the future land use element. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for that. And is anybody here tonight in support of this request that needs to speak? Anybody in support? Anybody virtually need to speak? Is there anybody in opposition to this request? Okay, I see 2 hands. Is there a primary speaker? We're going to split up time. Is there another? Just 2 back there? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Yvette Vega. I live at 9205 Quiet Lake Road. I'm on the south side of this proposed development. I think our main concern with this development is the road use with the future development. I think Williams Road is probably one of the worst roads in the county right now. There's been development to the north of us, there's development to the south of us, to the east of us, and only the little sections in front of those developments have been fixed for the roads. We have concern with the runoff into the lakes. As you heard, the bodies of water on there, some are man-made and some are not. We have sinkholes, we have wetlands, and we have a diverse ecosystem with anything you can think of, from bald eagles, foxes, egrets, fish hawk, you name it, it's out there, and it's a migratory path for a lot of animals. Our main concern also is with the buffer that will be between the development and our development. We have Quiet Lake Road is just a dirt road that we maintain. The county does not maintain that road. Can't think of too much else here. I had some notes. Let me look, please. Another concern I think mainly is with the potable well buffer.
I'm sorry, say again.
Concern with the potable well buffer. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to affect the lakes and the surrounding wells, because we are on wells. We just want to have some kind of protection for the land, for the community. We've been there all our life. Our family's been there, so it's been passed down. We are concerned.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the testimony.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Earlene Vega, 9205 Quiet Lake Road. And one of the big concerns of this property is that the man-made lake that has been dug on here has springs in it. And we don't want that polluted, because that is part of our drinking water. And if you get, this lake covers like half of this property, and they want to put 72 units on here in a little tiny strip. Now, what's going to keep the people from getting in the lake and trashing it and so forth? The runoff from, say, where they mow and stuff, the fertilizer and all that stuff, because you know there's going to be like landscaping and stuff through here. and the people getting over there and disturbing the animal life. We have turtles that come up on our property and dig holes and bury their eggs and go back to the lake. And, you know, and all this, we got to preserve nature. We're just taking up too much of their land. Right now, we have more squirrels and birds and stuff on our property because of all the other properties that come in and they take all the trees out and they build these houses and they call them the oaks, you know, like, and all the animals have nowhere to go. They're just being pushed out and pushed out. And mostly this is for the animals. And we want to save some of them, you know, we want to give them a place that they can go. And if they do build this, it's got to be protected. This piece of property, there's a sinkhole there on that property, that a natural sinkhole. And the lakes that they have made, right now there's cattle on there. There's some cows on there, you know? And so our main thing is protecting the environment and giving the animals a chance in this life,
All right.
in this world.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else that needs to speak in opposition? And nobody virtually? All right. And the anything from Development Services?
Yeah, just real quick to expand on the issue regarding the buffering screening along the southern boundary. You'll notice in the site plan that there's a significant number, there's wetlands and a significant amount of vegetation, especially on the southern boundary. All that area is being preserved as part of this request. We're not proposing to develop that. In lieu of standard screening, the condition basically acknowledges that significant setbacks and open space being provided by the wetlands and the burrow pits, and we felt that provided equivalent buffering and screening, and the condition specifically notes and requires the preservation of those open space areas, wetlands, and vegetation to protect and maintain that the existing buffering screening is provided by those enhanced setbacks.
Brian, this staff report that was provided for the hearing, does it take into account that variance?
Yes, that's why I wanted to expand on that, explain that, you know, again, in lieu of what would be like a 5-foot fence, the idea is, you know, you've got significant setbacks and wetlands and preservation open space areas, and so acknowledging that was sufficient and provided sufficient screening and buffering, because again, all the developments located in the northeast corner of the property, you've got a lot of vegetation and the burrow pits and areas that are providing significant setback and buffers and open spaces between the residences and where the buildings are located.
So is it also fair for me to say that this staff report, the only modifications that are going to occur for the transportation section?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, because it didn't incorporate the transportation conditions. Yes, correct.
All right, thank you, Brian. And anything else from Planning Commission?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you. And from the applicant?
Christy Barrero again. I'll just reiterate quickly what Mr. Grady said. So this is aerial of the site, and the blue boundary is generally where the townhomes and the development is going to occur. So as you can see, there's a wetland to the south that's heavily treed. We're not going to be doing anything to that, as well as anything on the west side of the property. We're concentrating all the development on the eastern and northern boundary to preserve as much of the land as we keep it in its existing condition as possible. And then I have Chris to come up to talk about a little bit more environmental items.
Evening.
Good evening. My name is Chris Stigler. I work for Water Resource Associates located at 4260 West Linebaugh Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33624. I would just like to have it on record that all environmental due diligence for this project has been done. All listed species surveys for this area have been reviewed and has been determined that this is not suitable habitat for any Florida protected species on this site.
Is that it, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Mr. Gorola, before we adjourn this, I just wanted, for those who spoke in this hearing, if they have questions regarding oral argument filing, Marisol Madron in the back of the room is available to answer those questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I do have a technical question regarding drainage. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Scarola, Jeremy Couch, Tampa Civil, 17937 Huntington Circle, Loops 33558.
Mr. Couch, what's the basic format for drainage going to be on the site?
Sure. So the two large lakes are burrow pits that were man-made. And essentially what we're going to do is collect water from our site and store it and treat it in the northern pond. We're also going to provide some improvement to the roadway that's out there because it's drainage challenged. So I believe we're going to have a net benefit to the area.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the applicant? All right, with that, we're going to close rezoning PD 2472, and I believe that will do it for our hearing. Thank you, everybody.